Hello there, it's Susie Walker here from Psychologies magazine. Delighted to be here with Ali Knowles, the founder of Ollie Schools. Hello, Ali.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Really good. Great to see you. We're going to be talking about how to help our children deal with their emotions today. Ali is the founder of the Ollie School, which empowers children and parents
Yeah.
to get to know their emotions really, really well. This is part of our lunchtime classes at Psychologies, the Psychologies Connected Communities, where we're inviting everybody, our experts, our columnists, to share their wisdom through these difficult times. So, do get your friends, your parents, everyone to come along to these classes because we've got some fantastic experts who have got such wisdom and great tools to share. But today we are talking to Ali Knowles, the founder of Ollie School, which is all about empowering children to become more emotionally intelligent and to figure out, I mean, we need this so desperately at the moment, Ali. But before we go to the how, just tell me, I say the founder of Ollie School, but what is Ollie School? What is that?
Uh, Basically, it came about. I'm a therapist. I've trained in CBT and a myriad of other therapies. I can't get enough. Um, and I found it all a little bit grown up and highbrow because I have reading and writing issues, and I was struggling with it. And a lot of people that came to see me, I think you attract a certain, they were struggling too. And I just needed to simplify it. And I didn't like the idea of having to try and put people in boxes. That didn't work for me, and I didn't like labels, and there was a lot I didn't like. So I thought, could we do something else? So what I did, very simply, is I took the best of just about everything out there, simplified it, so that I don't sit here, put you in a box, and tell you don't do this, do that. But I actually show you how to do it yourself. Because if we can give people control and the tools, we're not stupid. And if we have control, then we're in a much better place, and we can get on with our life. So then we can actually have the preventative part of therapy as well as the intervention, which I think is really, really needed right now. So I started off with a model which allowed me to explain therapy very, very simply to children and adults. Very quickly, word spread that I didn't have a 6-month waiting list, which unfortunately is the case because mental health services are overrun. And the results we were getting were permanent, and in half, a quarter, a third of the time. Word spread, people coming in from all over the country. So I decided that we needed more therapists. So I started training other guys with my background, found some really lovely ones, found a lot of them that should they be therapists, should they not, personal opinion. So I had a mad idea, which I do every now and again, but hey, I said, well, if I can do this. So I have a lovely team behind me, my minders, as I call them. And I said, look, I want to train mums and dads to be therapists, not to deal with the big stuff, highbrow stuff, psychosis, but with anxiety, self-worth, the things that cause all of us so many problems. So we created a school called the Ollie School. We don't call ourselves therapists, we're coaches, because we don't want to fix anyone. We just want to help you be the best you can be. We've been running 3 years now. It's gone mad. We've got therapists all over the country. We're working with schools, local government, council, foster adoption, early intervention. Absolutely balmy. And it's just because it's simple and powerful.
Yeah, and again, what we really need right now is simple and powerful. And I like what you said about the thing about it being preventative, not dealing with the crisis. So let's just start with people who are listening to this now, about the idea of empowering our children to manage their emotions, and also adults. Where do we start, Ali?
We'll start by playing, if you don't mind. I work in a lot of schools, and when I go into schools, up on the walls, there's lovely things written up: self-worth, resilience, empathy. Lovely big words, which the kids can spell, which is more than I can. But do they know what it means? Do most adults? So we do this thing, and by all means join in. If I ask you to point to your brain, you can, hopefully. If I ask you to point to your heart, you can, because you know where it is.
Yeah.
But if I ask you to point to an emotion, if I ask you to draw a heart in the air, you probably can. If I ask
Yes.
you to draw an emotion. And yet we're telling children and adults to take charge of that emotion. What is it? So the first thing that we had to do was try and make it tangible. And I came up with the idea of superpowers because I started off working with very, very small children, and who doesn't love a superpower? And it's a lovely way of explaining that emotions are parts of us, not who we are. So if you're angry, it's not you that's angry. You don't need that label. It's just a part of you. And literally by pulling that part of you that's angry out and asking it what's wrong, we've got a communication now with an emotion. But better still, the children can do this themselves, so can the adults. And a lovely thing happens if you separate it from you and separate it from yourself. Your head clears and you can come up with your own solutions. So that's what we did. And it allows you to explain why we need all the emotions. So if you only had, I don't know, if you only had your brave superpower, you might cross the road without looking. So you need calm or sensible, just to go, oi, left and right. And if we only had happy, well, would we ever really know what it was not to be happy? And, if we only had real happy, would we know what grief was if we didn't know what love was? Things like that. So it's a lovely way of explaining that we need all of them and we need to honour them. But most importantly, it's a part of you, not who you are. And from that, children can then deal with their own stuff. And we don't change the model at all. We just change the wording. So with the little guys, it's superpowers. With adults, I call them superpowers because it's fun. But I think one of the key things that we do is we don't preach our language to anyone. I think there's a lot of that happens in therapy. And I train my therapists to, when they meet a new client, to think of it this way, that the client is from another country who speak a separate language and have very specific customs that you don't understand. So our job's to learn theirs. And one of my favourite stories was a teenage lad that I was asked to work with in a school in London. And on the referral form, the teacher had put severe anger issues, an assumption that his behaviour was anger based on that teacher's assumption. We do that a lot too, which I think doesn't help. And when I got talking to him about his anger issues, he got quite cross with me, or I presumed he was cross, because he doesn't call it anger, he calls it vexed. I've never heard of that before, apart from in Pride and Prejudice. But for him, that feeling was vexed. And when I was calling it anger, we were talking a different language. So the moment I started talking about vexed, the model doesn't change. We just adapt the language and we use the language of the person we're working with.
So can I just, so let's say that you're feeling emotions such as vex or anger, let's say, and then you start talking to that. So you're acknowledging that anger is, first of all, it's separating it from yourself. You're acknowledging that is there, first of all. You give it a voice and then you speak to it. And then are you trying to find out what its role is? How does it work?
Yeah, no, good question. I think, again, one of the sort of core things that we believe within the Ollie model is that all behaviour serves a purpose. A lot of therapy works on the behaviour. So if you imagine a tree, right, and you've got branches on the tree, and people will come to a therapist with all sorts of different issues, whatever they may be, put those on the branch, their behaviours. If you just deal with the behaviour, chances are you can change the behaviour. You might stop it, but man, you're going to change the behavior into something else. But if you actually drill down to the root, which is an emotion, then you can find out why that behavior is really there. All behavior is emotionally driven. Consequently, if we want to change a behavior, we need to pull the emotion out and ask it its purpose. And the majority of the time, even if its purpose seems a little bit destructive or unwanted, it's actually trying to help us the best way it can. And by pulling it out, acknowledging it, honouring it, and just saying, okay, what's wrong? Why are you doing this right now? Why is anger so big? Why is sadness so big? It clears your head. You've separated it from yourself. It's not who you are. It's not your identity. It's a part of you. It's like your crew. And it's like taking care of your crew. Does that?
Yeah, that's great. And so when you give it a voice, so can you give me an example of what happens? So if you give, let's say, I mean, as an adult or as a child, you give that voice, let's say it's anxiety, it's, a child might not call it anxiety, but they may say that there's a monster or whatever. What kind of questions would you ask that part of you, or that superhero, or?
I can. The reason that Ollie came about was actually from a young boy called Peter, and we can use him if you like. He basically, his mum brought him to me, and she brought him into my therapy room and literally said, "Sort him out. He's angry like his dad," and left. And I'd never worked with children before, so then I'm stuck with this poor young lad who's only about 10. And I'm another adult that's going to judge him. You could see it all over his face. I think he'd been for a few of us. And I was trying to explain to him that, I know that I'm getting angry because my foot taps. How do you know? And like, thought I was a nutter. So then I said, well, I know when I'm getting really angry because my foot taps. And then if I'm really angry, I think my angry superpower moves all the way up me into my eyebrow, and my eyebrow goes up. Then I'm really, really angry. How do you know? And I just pushed and pushed. Thankfully for me, he turned up in football kit, so I knew a little bit about him, because it takes months and months to build rapport enough for anyone to open up and really, really trust you and say what's going on. And so I just pulled his angry part out, because he was, I'm not angry, I'm not. I pulled it out and I just started talking to it. This child's face was amazing. He thought I was a complete nut job. I could see him corner of my eye. And I just started asking stupid questions. And I said, are you angry because mum makes you go to ballet? Very obviously not. He's got a football kit on. And I can see Peter behind me go, no. Went, oh, it's not that then. No, okay, hang on. Are you making Peter angry? So I'm separating it. Because his mum makes you wear pink? No. And I asked some really stupid questions for about 10 minutes. That's all, 10 minutes in one session. In the end, Peter got so cross with me, he just yelled out, I'm angry because I don't want to be the big boy. When I then asked him what that meant, basically he's got a younger brother with some additional needs who's a bit poorly, and everyone that comes to the house has been homing in on mum and homing in on his younger brother. And once too often, Peter just gone to his mum, mum, and Peter said, Peter, please, I need you to be the big boy. Now, as adults, we can think, well, fair enough, she was under a lot of stress. But what did Peter hear? He heard, I'm not good enough, I'm not wanted, I'm not special. But that was all written off as anger. And what it actually was, anger was what was presenting, or our assumption of what was presenting. But there was a myriad of emotions behind that Peter just didn't know how to voice. So that was one way. Another way is literally just to pull whatever you'd call it. I call it anxiety. Children call it scared. They call it frightened. They call it that horrible feeling in my tummy, and pull it out and go, hello, why are you making my friend's tummy feel so bad at the moment? Do you know? Is it because you're, and then again, I throw something silly in, is it because you're worried about what you're having for dinner tonight? And if you're watching the child, you'll see them react and say no. And it actually encourages them to talk and actually tell you why this part's worried. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that children are happy just to sort of talk about this part. It's almost like dobbing this part in as having the problem rather than themselves. But very, very quickly, children and adults will tell you what's going on because you've separated it. You can stand back, you can look at it, and they've got headspace almost to work out what it is and voice it the best way they can.
Yes, I mean, I think there's a piece about one, it's a really clever way to acknowledge something and also to give that part of you a voice. And sometimes, but whether as adults, you go, well, I don't know why I'm angry. I don't know. And then once you start talking as you to this, so let's take the angry part and talk to that. And as you say, personify it in some way and having a conversation with it, as you say, it'll just tumble out of your mouth. So it's a great way of getting to the root of what might be going on. Really interesting.
We do this fun thing with children where, mum might say they're being angry, so we'll pull angry out, and then I'll just explain to the child, do you know these emotions, they're not very brave, and what they do when there's something wrong, they push one of the emotions up front, and he's the one that's got to tell you what's going on. And it looks like angry's been pushed up front. Poor old angry. I wonder who's hiding behind angry. If there was someone hiding behind angry, who do you think's just pushed him? And the children will go through it and they'll go, I think scared's behind him. Oh, right. And he said, anyone else behind scared? Sad's behind him. And straight away, very, very quickly again. So we're not talking months, which is what it would have taken. We're talking 1/2 sessions. We're actually getting to the root emotion of what's going on. So we're talking to the right part. So if we're talking to angry and it's not really angry, he's just the one that's frustrated and kicking off because the child can't explain, I'm scared, I'm sad. You'd be there forever and you're not being very helpful. So
I mean, what's so fascinating about it, I mean, it works, as you say, on the adult level too, because it's, so often I will turn up, as angry because but actually it's because I'm really hurt about something. And, it's really triggered feeling vulnerable. So it's just, I love it. It's such a magical way to access, as you say, these therapeutic tools that are being proven to work, but do it in a way that children can understand, even adults can understand. It's making, I want to talk to my sad and
don't do it in public, believe me. I live in a lovely village and they all know who I am and what I do for a living, and they're sort of, I walk around and sometimes I do it because I forget where I am and I'm like, why are you angry today? And I'm walking up the street and you're like,
Yeah, I know, it's fantastic. So talk about, there's a lot of kids being anxious at the moment, and people may say, oh, no, they're not anxious, but maybe showing something else. What are the kind of physical effects that we need to look out for when our kids maybe not showing up, or maybe showing anxiety, but maybe showing up as something else? How do we help support our children through this time?
I think that's quite a huge question. I mean, first of all, it's our perception of helping children through this time, and that's based on our take on what this time means to us as adults. And we need to, again, be mindful. Don't assume. We're assuming that children know everything we know about what's going on right now. Well, if they're old enough to have access to the news and be listening to themselves, then they're hearing what we're hearing. But a lot of the children, and at the moment, I'm flat out working with young families and young children that are very frightened. They're not frightened of the C word, coronavirus. They're frightened because mum's frightened or dad's frightened. They don't have the cognitive ability to understand what this virus is. What they understand is mum and dad are frightened. And that is terrifying them, because mum and dad are your protectors. And I think we also presume an awful lot. So when you're talking to your children, and I'm not about to tell you how to do that, because every child is so unique and at different stages of growth, that this is a very individual, personal thing. And I hate it when I see someone say, do this. No, don't. You know your child. But ask them what they already know and how they feel about that, before you go diving in with stuff that they didn't know that might be bothering you and you're presuming translates down to them. So do it gently. Be very, very reassuring. Don't lie to them. At the same time, be mindful of the facts you give them. So if they ask you about the coronavirus, you can say, quite honestly, yes, it's a nasty bug going around at the moment. And you remember the last time that you felt this, and this, maybe a cold or flu. It's like that, but a little bit worse. And we're all staying in just to make sure that we don't make people poorly, like we did when you were poorly before and we had to keep you off school. So deal with it at an age-appropriate level. But be mindful, every child's different, and their acceptance of that will be different. But a big thing, a lot of the kids I'm working with don't switch the news on. That's not their go-to. They don't get up in the morning and go, hey, news, not like us. What is the matter with us all watching the news at the moment? It's stressing us all out. So they're overhearing adults, or they're overhearing the news because you've got it on. So be very, very mindful about conversations that you're having around them. And there's something else going on there with the little ones. All children, well, all adults, I believe, have a sixth sense. We talk about our five senses, but our sixth sense. You know that you walk into a room sometimes and you think, we all have it. And I think it's a lot stronger in children. So even the parents that are doing a really good job at everything's fine, children, really, no, it's all good. If you're not genuinely feeling that, the kids will pick up on it. And then there's confusion, because mummy's saying there's nothing wrong, but the children can sense that there is, and mummy's worried. And that worries them even more. So it's so important that you're explaining stuff at the appropriate level for your individual child. Not always 10, I'll do it this way. Is he a normal 10? Is he a natural 10? Is he 11, 10? Make it about your child and use language that's appropriate for them. And remember, little kids are very nominal in thought. That's very black and white. Something is or it isn't. I'm loved or I'm not. This is scary or it's not. I'm safe or I'm not. And they can't think beyond that. So again, age-appropriate conversations. And we get things wrong as well. If our children are quite articulate, we presume that they are capable of understanding a lot more than they are. But here's the thing, a child's brain is amazing. I mean, I know a lot of children that can speak 3 or 4 languages. I can struggle with one, as you can hear. But that means that they're capable of learning. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've got anything in what I call the library, which is where we've had years and years of consequence and cause and effect. They don't have that yet. They're very capable of learning and parrot, but they don't have cause and effect. So what bothers us doesn't bother them. So don't presume. Always ask the question, what do they know and how does it make them feel?
I mean, again, what occurs to me is this, it's just, you know, these are fantastic tools to learn. You know, all of these things are great tools, and to check in with yourself. I mean, you always say, you know, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
You know, as parents, it's kind of, oh, how can we stop our child from feeling anxious was my question. And then you go, well, look at your own anxiety first. You know, look to yourself and how you can maybe manage that in some way. You've got a new course coming out, haven't you, that if you look at the link below, which will help people do this. So tell us a little bit about the course before it's our last question.
Well, before we were all on lockdown, I spent all my days just traveling around talking to parents groups, teachers, professionals that are working with children, young adults, about how to use the Ollie model, how to pull the part out, and some really, really cool techniques that don't need to stay in an ivory tower with therapists, that you guys are more capable of using them and doing it yourself. And we haven't been able to do that. We've never put anything Ollie online because all of our coaches are very one-to-one, but we have no choice at the moment. And I kind of kicked against it, but we have put it online and we put a course together specifically for getting you all through the lockdown. So how to put your oxygen mask on first, how to understand what's going on with you at the moment, how come we're all reacting the way we are, explaining what fight or flight is, and some really cool stuff for you to do with your kids to help them and you get through this and come out the other side a better person and in control of your emotions rather than them being in control of you. And we launched it today. I think we launched it earlier on today. And I'm really, really proud to say it's already sort of flying off the internet. And that's great, because I really do hope it'll help an awful lot of people that are really stressed and really worried right now. These are scary times and we don't feel in control. And the course is all about giving you back control.
It's wonderful. So the details are below. And I mean, as you know, we probably have a shared vision of what we want. We want coaches and therapists at the heart of schools, in the heart of our families. These coaching tools that you are providing are just invaluable. And you know, I believe there's an opportunity with the world right now is to look at how we can create the psychological support in all of these areas, and with children and schools, as you say, preventative versus you know, waiting till it's, you know, we're 20, 30, 40, 50 and we don't know how to do it. So I'm so delighted to speak to you today. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate your wisdom. Do have a look at, check out the Ollie School course on the link below. And if you want to train as an Ollie coach, I mean, even I was thinking, oh, maybe I can come and do that. You know, that'll really help me. But lots of love, Ali. Thank you so much again for all of your wisdom. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.